I never thought a simple trip to the grocery store would change my life forever. When that platinum blonde in her designer dress struck me with her purse, I had no idea my mysterious husband was about to reveal a secret that would shock everyone in that store. If you've ever been underestimated or treated poorly because of how you look, this story will give you hope. Stay until the end to see how karma works in the most unexpected ways. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible real-life stories. My name is Marilyn, and I want to tell you about the day that completely changed how I see myself and the world around me. It started like any other Tuesday morning, with me standing in front of my closet, picking out something simple to wear. I've always been the type of person who prefers comfort over style. My husband Daniel would often tell me I looked beautiful in anything, but honestly, I never really believed him. Daniel and I had been married for 3 years, and he was the most gentle, quiet man I'd ever met. He worked from home most days, always busy with his laptop, taking calls in his study. When I asked what he did for work, he'd just smile and say he handled business investments. I never pushed for details because he seemed to prefer keeping work separate from our home life. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom house, drove regular cars, and lived what I thought was a perfectly normal middle-class life. That Tuesday, I decided to do something special. Our wedding anniversary was coming up in a few days, and I wanted to cook Daniel's favorite meal, beef Wellington with all the fancy sides. The problem was, our local grocery store didn't carry the high-quality ingredients I needed, so I made a decision that felt both exciting and terrifying. I would shop at Grandview Market, the upscale grocery store on the rich side of town. I remember putting on my best outfit that morning, a simple beige sweater and brown pants. I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to convince myself that I belonged anywhere I wanted to shop. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head, reminding me that money doesn't make a person, but character does. Little did I know how much I'd need that reminder in just a few hours. The drive to Grandview Market took about 20 minutes, and with each mile, I felt more nervous. The neighborhood changed from familiar middle-class homes to sprawling mansions with perfectly manicured lawns. When I pulled into the parking lot, I immediately felt out of place. Luxury cars gleamed in every spot, Mercedes, BMWs, even a few cars I couldn't identify but knew cost more than most people's homes. Walking through those glass doors felt like entering a different world. The floors were polished marble, the lighting was soft and elegant, and classical music played gently in the background. Even the shopping carts were different, sleek metal with smooth wheels that glided silently across the floor. I grabbed one and tried to look like I knew what I was doing. The produce section was like something out of a magazine. Fruits and vegetables were arranged like artwork, and everything looked perfect. I was examining some mushrooms when I first noticed the stares. A woman in a fur coat looked me up and down with barely concealed disgust. An elderly man in an expensive suit stepped aside when I walked past, as if I might contaminate him somehow. I tried to ignore the looks and focus on my shopping list, but it was hard to concentrate when you feel like everyone is judging you. That's when I heard her voice for the first time, loud, sharp, and filled with entitlement. "Excuse me, do you work here?" The voice belonged to a stunning blonde woman, probably in her early 30s, wearing a white designer dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Her jewelry sparkled under the store lights, and she carried herself like she owned the world. "No, I'm just shopping," I replied politely. She looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "Oh, I just assumed." "Well, never mind." The way she said it made it clear she thought I couldn't afford to shop there. Her name, I later learned, was Cassandra, though she introduced herself to others as Cassandra Worthington of the Newport Worthingtons, as if that should mean something to everyone. I continued shopping, trying to maintain my dignity, but Cassandra seemed to be everywhere I went. In the meat section, she made loud comments about how some people don't understand quality cuts. At the wine display, she laughed with her friend about how funny it would be if someone tried to buy expensive wine without knowing anything about it. The worst part was that other shoppers started joining in on the subtle mockery. It was like high school all over again, but with adults who should have known better. A group of women in tennis outfits whispered and pointed. A man in a polo shirt shook his head disapprovingly when I reached for organic vegetables. I was in the pasta aisle, trying to find the imported Italian brand I needed, when the real confrontation began. I was reading the ingredients on a package when someone bumped into me hard from behind. My shopping cart rolled forward, and several items fell to the floor. "Watch where you're going!" Cassandra's voice was shrill and angry. I turned around, confused. "I'm sorry, I was just standing here." "Don't give me that innocent act," she snapped. "You clearly weren't paying attention. Look at this mess." She gestured dramatically at the few items that had fallen from my cart, a package of mushrooms and a bottle of olive oil. "I'll pick it up," I said quietly, bending down to gather my groceries. "You should be more careful," she continued loudly, making sure everyone in the aisle could hear. "Some people don't understand proper grocery store etiquette." That's when other shoppers started getting involved. "She really should watch where she's going," said the woman in the fur coat from earlier. "This is why certain people shouldn't shop here," muttered the man in the polo shirt. I felt my face burning with embarrassment, but I tried to stay calm. "I really am sorry for any inconvenience," I said, even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But Cassandra wasn't finished. "Sorry doesn't fix anything. Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? What if you had damaged it?" She stepped closer, invading my personal space. "People like you need to learn your place." The crowd was growing now. A store manager had appeared, but instead of asking what happened, he immediately assumed I was at fault. "Ma'am, is there a problem here?" he asked me, not Cassandra. "She crashed into me with her cart," Cassandra lied smoothly. "Nearly knocked me over. I could have been seriously injured." I opened my mouth to explain what really happened, but the manager cut me off. "We expect all our customers to shop responsibly. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the discount stores." The humiliation was overwhelming. Everyone was staring, whispering, taking out their phones. I felt tears threatening to spill, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. That's when Cassandra made her biggest mistake. As I turned to leave, trying to preserve what little dignity I had left, she grabbed my arm. "Next time, stay where you belong," she hissed. And then she did something that changed everything. She swung her expensive designer handbag and struck me across the shoulder with it. The blow wasn't hard enough to really hurt, but it was the principle of the thing. She had actually hit me. The store went silent. Even Cassandra seemed surprised by her own action, but she quickly composed herself. "That's what happens to people who don't know their place," she said loudly. I stood there in shock, my shoulder stinging more from the humiliation than any physical pain. The manager looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything to Cassandra. The other shoppers were recording with their phones, probably planning to post about the drama at the fancy grocery store later. I was about to walk away, about to let them win, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Marilyn? What's going on here?" I turned around to see Daniel walking toward us, and my heart both lifted and sank at the same time. I was relieved to see him, but embarrassed that he had to witness this scene. "Daniel, I was just leaving," I said quietly. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Cassandra with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, cold, calculating, and somehow dangerous. "Did you just hit my wife?" His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. Cassandra laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your wife? Oh, this is rich. Let me guess, you're here to defend her honor." She looked him up and down dismissively. Daniel was wearing his usual outfit, simple jeans, a plain button-down shirt, and sneakers. To Cassandra, he probably looked as out of place as I did. "I asked you a question," Daniel said, his voice still unnaturally calm. "Yes, I gave her a little tap," Cassandra said smugly. "Someone needed to teach her some manners. Maybe you should control your wife better." The crowd murmured their agreement. The manager nodded along, clearly siding with Cassandra because of her obvious wealth and status. That's when something strange happened. Daniel pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hi, it's me," he said to whoever answered. "I'm at the Grandview Market location. We have a situation here. Can you come down, please?" "Yes, now." Cassandra rolled her eyes. "Oh, are you calling your friend to help? How cute." Daniel hung up and put his phone away. "My friend will be here shortly." "I don't have time for this nonsense," Cassandra said. "Manager, I want these people removed from the store immediately. They're disturbing the other customers." The manager nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mrs. Worthington. Sir, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "We'll wait," Daniel said simply. I was confused. This wasn't like Daniel at all. He was usually so quiet, so conflict avoidant. But there he stood, completely calm in the face of all this hostility, as if he knew something the rest of us didn't. We didn't have to wait long. About 5 minutes later, a well-dressed older man came hurrying through the store entrance. He looked around frantically until his eyes landed on Daniel. "Sir!" he called out, practically running toward us. "I came as soon as I got your call." Cassandra smirked. "Oh, good, another one." But then the older man did something that made everyone's jaws drop. He extended his hand to Daniel in a gesture of deep respect. "Mr. Harrison," he said formally, "I'm so sorry to have bothered you with this. How can I help?" The name hit the crowd like a physical blow. Harrison, as in Harrison Industries, one of the largest business empires in the state, as in the billionaire family that owned dozens of companies, including, I suddenly realized, including this grocery store chain. Daniel, my quiet, simple husband, was Daniel Harrison. "Mr. Peterson," Daniel said to the man, who I now realized must be the owner or CEO of the grocery chain. "My wife was physically assaulted by this woman, and your manager suggested that we would be more comfortable shopping at a discount store." The silence was deafening. Cassandra's face had gone white. The manager looked like he might faint. Mr. Peterson turned to look at me with genuine concern. "Mrs. Harrison, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" I was so shocked I could barely speak. I'm fine." "No, she's not fine," Daniel said firmly. "She was humiliated, mocked, and then physically struck by someone who thought she could act with impunity because of her perceived social status." Cassandra finally found her voice. "Wait, this is some kind of mistake. You can't be— look at how you're dressed." Daniel turned his attention to her for the first time since Mr. Peterson arrived. "You're right. I am dressed simply, just like my wife. We don't feel the need to advertise our wealth or use it to intimidate people. But you do, don't you? You use your family's money as a weapon against people you think are beneath you." "I didn't know," Cassandra stammered. "If I had known who she was—" "That's exactly the problem," Daniel said. "You think it's acceptable to treat people poorly as long as they're not rich. You think kindness and respect are privileges that have to be earned through wealth." Mr. Peterson was looking around at the crowd that had gathered, his face growing redder by the minute. "Which one of my employees suggested that Mrs. Harrison shop elsewhere?" The manager raised a trembling hand. "Sir, I didn't know. She looked—" "You're fired," Mr. Peterson said simply. "Pack your things and leave immediately." But Daniel wasn't finished. He turned to address the entire crowd that had gathered. "Every single person here who participated in humiliating my wife, who laughed at her, who treated her with disrespect simply because she doesn't dress in designer clothes or carry expensive handbags, should take a long look in the mirror tonight. You revealed something ugly about yourselves today." The woman in the fur coat was backing away. The man in the polo shirt had already disappeared. People were scattering like they couldn't wait to get away from their own behavior. "As for you," Daniel said, turning back to Cassandra, "you assaulted my wife. That's a criminal matter, not a civil one." "Please," Cassandra begged, all her arrogance gone. "I made a mistake. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you want." "The time for apologies was before you decided that violence was an appropriate response to your own insecurities," Daniel replied. "Mr. Peterson, I assume you have security cameras throughout the store." "Yes, sir. Full coverage." "Good. Please preserve the footage. My attorney will be in touch about both the assault and the discriminatory treatment my wife received from your staff." As we walked toward the exit, my mind was reeling. Daniel Harrison, My husband was Daniel Harrison, one of the wealthiest men in the state, and I had no idea. 3 years of marriage, and I thought he was just a regular guy who worked with investments. In the car, I finally found my voice. "Daniel, we need to talk." He sighed deeply. "I know. I should have told you earlier. I loved being normal with you. I loved that you didn't see dollar signs when you looked at me. But why? Why live so simply when you could afford anything? Because I learned a long time ago that money changes people. It makes them greedy, manipulative, fake. When I met you, you were kind to the waiter even though he spilled water on you. You helped that elderly woman carry her groceries to her car. You donated your time at the animal shelter without expecting anything in return. You liked me for me, not for what I could give you. I thought about all the times he'd been secretive about work, all the phone calls he'd taken in private, all the business trips he'd said were for small investment meetings. So all those business trips, board meetings, acquisitions, charity functions, all the things I had to do to keep the companies running but never wanted to burden you with, and our house, our cars, our whole lifestyle. I wanted us to have a normal life. I wanted to come home to someone who loved me, not my bank account. But I also set up trust funds for you, for our future children, for your parents. I may live simply, but I'm not careless with our security. We drove in silence for a while, and I processed everything that had happened. My husband was a billionaire. I had just been assaulted by a society woman who thought she was better than me, and somehow, through it all, I felt stronger than I had in years. "I'm proud of you," Daniel said suddenly. "What do you mean?" "Back there, you never once tried to use my name or my money to defend yourself. You took their abuse with dignity. You stayed true to who you are." I felt humiliated. "And you should have. What they did was wrong, but you handled it with grace." The next few days were a whirlwind. The security footage from the store went viral on social media. Cassandra Worthington became the face of entitled rich behavior. The former manager was exposed for his pattern of discriminatory treatment toward customers he deemed unworthy. But more importantly, Daniel and I had long conversations about our future. He explained that he'd been planning to tell me about his wealth gradually, maybe by our 5th anniversary. He showed me the charitable foundation he'd been running secretly, the scholarships he'd funded, the community centers he'd built in low-income neighborhoods. "I don't need the money to change who I am," I told him, "but I want to use it to help people." And that's exactly what we did. We started a foundation focused on combating discrimination and promoting kindness. We funded programs that taught empathy and respect in schools. We created support systems for people who had experienced public humiliation or bullying. Cassandra, meanwhile, faced both criminal charges for assault and a civil lawsuit. More damaging to her, though, was the social exile she experienced. Her own social circle, once they realized she had assaulted a Harrison, turned their backs on her completely. The very social status she had used as a weapon became her downfall. The former manager never found work in retail again. The story of his discrimination followed him everywhere he applied. As for me, I learned something valuable that day. My worth isn't determined by my clothes, my car, or my zip code. It's determined by how I treat people, how I respond to adversity, and how I choose to use whatever resources I have to make the world better. Daniel and I still live simply. We upgraded to a slightly larger house, but nothing ostentatious. We drive reliable cars, eat at normal restaurants, and shop at regular stores. The difference is that now I know we have the means to help people when they need it, and every time someone treats a service worker poorly, or makes assumptions about someone based on their appearance, or thinks that money gives them the right to be cruel, I remember that day in Grandview Market. I remember that kindness costs nothing, but cruelty can cost everything. The most important lesson? You never know who you're talking to. That quiet person in simple clothes might have more power than you imagine. That service worker might be working their way through medical school. That elderly woman you help with her groceries might be a retired teacher who shaped hundreds of young minds. But even more than that, it shouldn't matter who they are or what they have. Every person deserves basic human dignity and respect. Every person has a story, struggles, dreams, and feelings. Cassandra learned this lesson the hard way. She lost her social standing, faced legal consequences, and became a cautionary tale about the dangers of judging people by their appearance. Me, I gained something much more valuable than money that day. I gained confidence in who I am, regardless of what I own. I gained the knowledge that true strength comes from character, not from designer handbags or expensive dresses. And I gained a deeper appreciation for my husband, not because he's wealthy, but because he chose to use his wealth quietly, humbly, and in service of others. That's the story of how a simple trip to the grocery store changed my life forever. It taught me that the most powerful weapon against cruelty is kindness, and the most important currency in life isn't money, it's how we treat each other. This story reminds us that we never know who we're talking to or what battles people are fighting quietly. Treat everyone with respect because you never know when karma might be watching. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button, subscribe for more amazing stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. What would you have done in Marilyn's situation? Let me know in the comments below.